WISC-TV now presents For the Record.
A conversation with UW-Madison Chancellor Rebecca Blank is next on For the Record. Thanks for joining us. I'm Neil Heinen. We're going to spend much of the next half hour talking about the recently released results of the UW-Madison's first campus-wide climate survey. But we can't pass up the opportunity to put a broader perspective on the state of the UW when we have Chancellor Rebecca Blank as our guest, as we do today. And Chancellor, thank you very much for joining us.
It's good to be here, Neil.
I do want to start with the climate survey because, first of all, it's important. Second of all, it got quite a bit of attention. So 8,652 students responded, almost 200 questions. That's a 21% response rate. And I think these are two separate questions. What did we, as a community, learn from the results of that study? And then what did you, maybe you and the administration, learn about the results of that study?
Yeah. So we did this because we wanted to know what the data show in terms of views of different groups of students towards what they're experiencing on campus. And we have a lot of anecdotal evidence, but you know, these sorts of surveys are very helpful. And the distribution of students who responded looks just like our campus distribution. So we're pretty confident it's a pretty good set of results. So you know, the first top line comment is that 4/5 of our students say they feel welcome and respected on campus, right? And that's really good news. You know, it says a lot of students are having a really good experience. But the second top line comment is there are real differences across different groups of students as to how welcome and respected they feel. And particularly among our students of color and among our LGBTQ community, they respond to those questions with less enthusiasm than our other students and indicate that they feel, you know, just sort of a lot more marginalized in a number of ways on campus.
Right. Can you help me with this? You know, I think that there's part of me that it's important. I get it. It's important. Yeah. But that we are so emphasizing this issue of feeling comfortable and feeling welcome that we run the risk of overemphasizing it. Yeah. I mean, disagree with me if you want, but is it really to that level that's where the public conversation is about our university?
So you are right in the following sense. Universities are about education and learning new things and being confronted with all sorts of ideas is sometimes not a comfortable experience. And part of what should be happening on campus is that students are forced to stretch outside their comfort zone and think about ideas they haven't thought about before. But campus is more than just what happens in the classroom. Many of our students, you know, they spend 24 hours a day on campus. They live in the dorms, they go into the Union, they walk down Langdon and State Street, they eat on campus, and they go to classes, they go to student events. So, you know, this is a full community. And if you're going to give an experience to students whereby when they walk into class, they are ready to learn, they're ready to be challenged, they're ready to take in things that might seem like strange, new, and sometimes difficult ideas, they have to feel like this is their home, right? Otherwise, you know, their openness to that type of education is just a little bit less. They'll be more on edge. So I actually think it is important to ask, you know, because the question wasn't, you know, do you have safe spaces on campus? The question is, do you feel respected on campus? Do you feel like you're welcome here, that this is a place where you are at home in some sense? And that's not the only question you want to ask about campus, but it's not an unimportant question.
Now, was there an element of safety to all of this? Was there any element of this where we learned that students really do feel physically not safe?
So, you know, I don't know about physically not safe. What we did learn, and I think this is the most problematic of all of the answers, is that 11% of students say that they have experienced or observed an experience of pretty serious harassment, right? And again, certain groups of students are much more likely to report that. And, you know, that's, you know, about being in a diverse and inclusive campus. You don't want very many students experiencing harassment. And it's not entirely clear, of course, from a survey like this what that means. I mean, we did ask a little bit more about the nature of those incidents, but very few of those students reported anything. Because we also asked, did you report this? And less than 20% of those who said they experienced youth harassment reported it to anyone.
I was going to ask you, Chancellor, about the sexual harassment issues on campus that we've talked about before. That I know that you're paying very, very close attention to. Does any of that get woven into this piece of work?
Yeah, so this was not about sexual harassment. This was actually a follow-up on a similar study we did 2 years ago about sexual assault, sexual violence, sexual harassment. And that was, I thought, a study that had really substantial impact on campus. It's one reason we did this second follow-up study. That sexual assault survey showed results at Madison that were very similar to results on other campuses. A significant number of young women say that in one form or another they've experienced assault. Now that's everything from groping to to rape. So that's quite a variety of different experiences there. But the result of that was that a good number of campus groups, of student groups, said, those numbers are really unacceptable, and responded. So, for instance, in our Greek community, the Greek community came together and wrote a series of policies around how they're going to provide training and education and conversation around these issues, and pretty much all of our Greek organizations signed on to those policies. That wouldn't have happened without that survey and without the data that says, no, this is not just something people occasionally talk about. This really is something a significant number of people experience. And I hope that this year's climate survey has some of that same effect, because I do occasionally hear people dismiss, well, some people just complain more. And this survey says, no, there are some very real differences between how different students experience campus. And it's on all of us to make this a campus that students from all backgrounds, and I should say staff and faculty as well, feel like they can be here and this is a welcoming place for them.
Does any element of this, Chancellor, address, again, the popular conversation around feeling welcome, ideas of political ideology, of religion, those kinds of issues?
We actually got some very interesting results on that. We did ask about political ideology. Our students who indicated that they were more conservative actually responded at much higher rates, that they felt respected and welcomed on campus, that they actually had some of the highest rates of any group. So that was good.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting result. In terms of religion, the one group that indicated more distance and more marginalization were Muslims, and I think that's not surprising in our current world. Interestingly enough, our Jewish students and our Christian students responded virtually identically to all of these questions.
Well, before we leave this topic, I want to take our first break, and then when we come back, we'll talk about what changes we might see, and then we're going to talk about the Badger Promise with Chancellor Rebecca Blank right after this. My guest is UW-Madison Chancellor Rebecca Blank, and we are starting off talking about the campus climate survey. And as I said, Chancellor, just before we move on, what changes are being talked about right now? What changes might people see in response to these results?
Well, I think these results really emphasize that some of the things we're doing are on the right track, and that's important to know. So, for instance, we this past year rolled out a conversational module about what does it mean to come to a campus where there's a much broader group of people of backgrounds and experiences and where they come from and who they are than you at age 18 came from at home, right? And how do you live and work in a more diverse environment? We had piloted that last year with a smaller number of students, found some very good results. So we actually rolled it out to all of our freshmen. And I think this survey reinforces the importance of doing things like that. We're doing additional training to our TAs about teaching in more diverse classrooms. We have a wonderful project that the School of Education has put together to work with faculty who want to think about their teaching methods and whether they're reaching a full group of students, and again, how they teach in more diverse classrooms. So we've got a number of things going on campus, and I've gotten some criticism for doing some of those things, and I think this survey really reinforces the need for why we have to do it.
Criticism from outside or from within?
More from outside than from within.
Okay.
Yeah.
Listen, I think this is a good thing, but it's always hard to define where the boundaries of the university begin and end, and where the boundaries of the community begin and end. And this conversation is taking place in a community that is having similar discussions in a lot of ways. And as the downtown area continues to grow with housing for people who are working at Epic and other places, what does how does the community's conversation intersect with what's being talked about on campus?
So let me make a point that's very important, that this conversation about diversity, about inclusiveness, about making sure that this is a campus where quite a wide variety of people can be and feel at home on, this is not just because, we all want to feel good. This is actually an educational necessity in our current world, that if we want to train students for the jobs of the 21st century, particularly the sort of leadership jobs that our students are going to go out into, they are going to be in very diverse communities. They're going to be in global communities. They're going to be in racially diverse communities. They're going to be in communities of people who just come from very different backgrounds and experiences. And they have to be able to work in those communities and work effectively with a wide variety of people. So when I say I want to make our campus inclusive and welcoming, it's the same as saying I want to make sure our education is a preparation for the jobs and the environments in which our students are going to work. Now, the community is one example of that. The community here is struggling with this. There are a number of growing jobs. If you go out to Epic, they have a very diverse workforce, and our students who go there have to be ready to go and work at that company. And that's not just about the technical skills. That's also about the job skills of who you're working with and how you work with them effectively.
Yeah. Well, so as as we talk about the climate on campus, another issue that's been going on for years and years, Chancellor, as you know, is access. Who has access to the university? How one gets into the university? The Badger Promise was launched this year. Tell us about the initial results of that.
Yeah, so access is one that I care a lot about. Badger Promise is a program that we are just starting that I'm very excited about, and it's really aimed at first-generation students. A lot of first-generation students start at two-year schools. They, for a whole set of reasons, stay at home initially. They can't afford to go elsewhere. So it's much more likely that a first-generation student will go to a two-year college, and if they go into college in their first couple of years. So this is aimed at first-generation students who started in the two-year state UW system schools. For those students, when they transfer to UW-Madison, and we have automatic transfer agreements, I mean, you have to perform at a certain level, right? But given that, if you come to UW-Madison and you're a first-generation student, you are guaranteed 1 year's free tuition. If you're a first-generation student and you're Pell eligible, and Pell grants go to students from very low-income families, you are guaranteed 2 years free tuition. And that's a strong statement about the extent to which we want to be educating these students on our campus and giving them an opportunity to move from that two-year college experience into a 4-year degree at a really top-rate public university.
Students have to apply for this, Chancellor? How does the process work?
So we have automatic transfer agreements with all of the two-year schools in the state. So those agreements say that, if you have a grade point average at a certain level and above, and you have to take at least some set of courses that are reflect a little bit of the distribution requirements that exist at UW-Madison, that you are automatically admitted to UW-Madison if you meet those requirements. And we work hard to advise students about what it is they have to do to get automatic transfer. Now, you can apply even if you aren't in the automatic transfer pool, but a lot of the students who come to us just come automatically. They don't have to do a separate application.
Is there anything about the current system conversation about reorganization that would put this in some jeopardy?
No, I don't think so. One of the things that's very clear with the reintegration of two-year schools into four-year colleges is that those two-year schools are going to keep a clear identity, and that all of the four-year schools in the system will continue to recruit on those campuses. Are
you okay with the current with the proposal as it stands?
So the main effect of this proposal on me is that we are going to re-welcome cooperative extension back on campus. Cooperative extension was defined on the Madison campus. It existed there 50, 60 years. And in every other state that I know of, it is on the flagship campus. So I am really delighted to bring Cooperative Extension back. This is an organization that does, it has a cadre of trained professionals who take the information of the university out into the community. And they have people in regions and counties all around the state. And it is a wonderful expression of the Wisconsin idea. And I think coming back to campus, we are going to be able to strengthen Cooperative Extension in a number of ways by their closer connections with us. And I hope that Cooperative Extension will strengthen us in our commitment to the Wisconsin idea. So I'm delighted with that change.
When we come back, I want to talk about some of the exciting things going on the UW-Madison campus. So we're going to do that with Chancellor Becky Blank right after this. We're having a conversation this morning with the Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Rebecca Blank. And Chancellor, among other rankings that we see regularly, there was a report in a study in the last few weeks that showed UW-Madison, I think, #1 in study abroad.
Yes, among all public schools.
Among all public schools.
Right.
Now, I think that bears some, that deserves some conversation. I think it's so important for students to have that global perspective, and yet there are some issues involved in that, and who is able to study abroad, and how we can support that.
Yeah, it's another part of preparing for 21st century jobs and being comfortable in different cultures and different places. I'm really proud of the work that our International Studies Office has done, and the number of students that they've pulled in, and I think our students are understanding this. We have across the board actually tried to emphasize that coming to Madison is not just about doing well in classes. It's about having an outside the classroom experience, whether that is internships or community service or study abroad or research experiences with faculty, that all of that is part of having an effective and successful 4 years at Madison. So this really shows we've been successful with that on the study abroad front, that we could send even more students there. Part of the problem is it often costs additional money beyond just your regular tuition to go overseas. There are other expenses. And I wish, I'm working on this in the current campaign, that we had more scholarship aid for students who want to go abroad and whose families may not have that income level.
But that's a possibility with if the current campaign is as successful as we all hope it will be.
Absolutely.
I know there's so many things going on. It's about as dynamic a place as I can imagine. All of this just popped into my head. I remember hearing recently that there was some talk about computer sciences, which is a highly regarded department in the university, and some thought that maybe that could be expanded. Is that any talk about that?
So we've actually made quite a strong commitment to computer sciences, which is a very important, an area of growing importance, and not just as its own department, but in the integration of computers and big data and in a whole series of other fields. So we have gone to the department and, starting in the last several years, told them that we know they need to grow. We have growing interest as the majors. We want a strong and growing department here. So we've made a commitment to them. I think they hired 5 new faculty last year. They're looking to hire next year. We want them to grow really almost by 50%, to go up to 50, at least 50 faculty members.
I mean, its excellence is globally recognized, isn't it?
Yeah, it's rated number 11 in the country. Of course, we'd love to get back into that top 10 slot.
Sure.
And we do have to grow. We have to do some good hiring. I think there's some expansion on the educational front that can happen there. So,
would it need to be in its own college, for example, to get back into the top 10?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I mean, I must say, I think that is, this is not a place where creating a separate school, it's very small to be a separate school, and not yet at the level in terms of outside support and numbers of students that I think would justify that. But, we want to grow it inside the Liberal Arts College, where it really has lots of connections with other departments and with the whole set of students who might not want to major in computer science, but may want to have a certificate or some additional training there.
What other things are you excited about, Chancellor, that people might not be hearing about?
Well, people are hearing about this, but of course you can't not be excited about Badger sports this fall.
It has been quite a year.
Yeah.
I mean, the athletic department-wide.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm quite excited about both our hockey and our basketball teams in the coming season. But of course, the football team has just had a marvelous session, and we'll see what happens for the rest of the season. But hats off to them and to Coach Christ for what they've done.
We could spend the whole show on this, but men's and women's soccer were extremely successful, and the cross country teams, and it just seems like kind of a golden age for Badger athletics.
No, it's good, and that's not the only thing you care about on campus for obvious reasons, but it really helps in terms of the school spirit and the sense of us being a school with a real national reputation, not just educationally, but in the way we serve our students against it. The outside the classroom experiences, I think, can be as important as the inside the classroom experiences.
I mean, I think it's a valuable debate, the role of athletics on college campuses, but then there's also, it can also get to this point of who's doing it right.
Yeah, and this is one thing I'm very proud of. I do think that UW is doing student athletic sports right. We are consistently among the top graduation. Our football team for the last 5 years has been ranked number 6 or higher in terms of all Division I teams in their graduation rates and their academic success levels. And if you're able to do that and have the sort of performance that we have, that's something to be proud of, and we see that across the board in all our teams. So, I'm a big supporter of student athletes, and it has to be clear that they are student athletes, and that's the right designation.
It never gets old to see the Wall Street Journal have that graph in there, that bastion of sports journalism, the Wall Street Journal, that show UW like in the top 2 or 3 in terms of academics and athletic success.
Yeah, it's good.
That's a good message to get out there.
It's good. But I will say, in addition to that, I think we've done some great hiring of faculty. We had a wonderful new federal grant come in, our largest ever, for our Energy Research Center, working on sustainable energy in a variety of ways. There's just lots of good things happening on campus. Makes it fun to be there.
Attracting faculty is something that we can't take for granted. So we're doing well in that respect.
Well, as you know, after the whole tenure debate, we had a year where we had almost double the number of outside offers we've had, and we retained about 80% of those faculty. But 80% of a big number still means you're losing some really good faculty. We had a higher than average outside, but nothing like that one year last year. And I'm hoping this year we're going to be back to average, and we do a good job of retaining faculty. People want to be at Wisconsin, and we need to make sure we keep that up.
Chancellor, it's always good to talk to you.
It's good to talk to you.
We're going to come back and wrap up For the Record right after this. My thanks to Chancellor Rebecca Blank and to you for joining us on For the Record. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. See you next week.